Good morning, everyone. So I'm coming up to say good morning first before we start our prelude because I want to introduce you to, we haven't heard him sing in a long time. And so we have Steve this morning who's going to sing for us. Woo-hoo! And I wanted to make sure I got a chance to introduce him. Come on up, Steve. Come on up. If you have any trouble, we'll make sure we turn it on.
Yeah.
There you go, it's on.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Wow, it's been a long time. I miss you guys. Here we go. This is a cappella. Somewhere above, there is a heaven. Somewhere above, there is a song. I believe for every drop of rain that falls, a flower grows. I believe that someone in the darkest nights hears every word. I believe that somewhere in the great somewhere hears every word. I believe, I believe, I believe above the storm, the smallest prayer can still be heard. I believe that someone in the great somewhere hears every word. Every time I hear a newborn baby cry, oh, touch a leaf, oh, see the sky, then I know why I believe. Thank you, thank you, thank you very much.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Steve. It's been a long time since we heard you sing. Yes, thank you, thank you. And I love that you did it a cappella because then we could really pay attention to the words Such beautiful words, right? I believe, I believe. So good morning. How are you? Oh, it's so good to see you. It's always so good to see you. I'm excited to be here with you. I was so confused this morning. I didn't change all my clocks, so I didn't know which clock was right. And then Joe said, just look at your cell phone. So I made it here a little later than normal, but I'm so glad to be here with you in this beautiful, beautiful day. A day that the Lord has made, and we can rejoice and be glad in it. So welcome, Facebook and YouTube family. Yay, everybody turn around and say hi. Hi, Facebook family. I can't wait until we're all together again. I get to talk to as many people as I can during the week, and oh, geez, I just can't wait. We're all feeling the same way, right? When we came, and it looks like there's real light at the end of the tunnel, so it'll be sooner than later. Oh. So right now, I want to get right into the service because we have something lovely planned for you. So I'm inviting you to please take a moment to get really settled in your space where you are. And if it's comfortable for you, gently close your eyes and take a deep breath with me. Allow that breath to settle you from the busyness of your mind down to your sacred heart, knowing that God is right where you are. How amazing is that? God is I am. And we can rejoice in knowing that. We are one with infinite presence. And we can take all the joy, all the peace, all that love that we are, and bring it right here this moment and share it with one another and allow it to move beyond these four walls to all those that we love and those we don't know yet, out into Citrus County community. Grateful, grateful, grateful for the peace that comes in knowing that we are a child of God. That everything has been bequeathed to us. And so we can be in peace and joy and love. This day we just celebrate together. Know that the light of God that is here because you have shown up. So thank you, God, for the immense awareness, the wisdom that comes from contemplating on the truth. God is I am, and all is well. So thank you, God. And so it is. So let us say our affirmation of oneness. There is one power and one presence in the universe and in my life. God the good, all-powerful, all-knowing, everywhere present, right here, right now, God. Namaste.
Welcome to your So Good moment, where it is our great joy to remind you of how adored you are.
You know, sometimes in the hustle, bustle, chaos that is life, there is but one thing to say. Bring me back to center. Bring me back to center. Bring me back to flow. Now my soul surrenders. Peace is all I know. Peace is all I know.
Good morning. The power of the month is strength. Green represents spring, fresh new opportunities of growth. In the world of chaos, hold on to knowing that God is surrounding each of us. Today's meditation will focus on fully relying on God. This is the time for meditation. Calm your body and mind. A time to relax and breathe. I will use a chime to bring in the breath to focus on our state of meditation. At the end of the meditation, I will chime 3 times to bring us back to the surroundings of our being. You're welcome to close your eyes if you like. Last week, we visited a beautiful forest, rich with mosses so deep your feet would just sink in. We're going back to that forest. Breathe in the fresh, clean aroma of the forest. You hear a stream and your feet begin to lead you to the edge of that beautiful, refreshing water. There's a weathered, fallen tree at the very edge of the bank, and you sit down, listening to the tumbling water dancing over the stones. Fully take what you are receiving. Just listen, breathe. As the peace of the stream encompasses you, your spiritual mind recognizes the importance of relying something higher than the physical plane. Bring your mind spirit to the center of that connection. You're feeling your physical body release tension and worry. Your breath is slow and calm, fully relying on the loving power of the universe. Enjoy this feeling. Listen to the stream. Breathe. You notice a beautiful green frog sitting right next to you. The frog is quietly enjoying the same surroundings as you. You can feel the intensity of the oneness with the frog together, living and breathing. With great joy, the frog looks directly at you. The frog's eyes are deeply searching for connectivity with you. As you both connect at this moment, you realize that you both, you and the frog, and all your surroundings are relying on God. This moment is the reality that you are fully relying on God. Fully relying on God. Focus your mind's eye to accept the healing love of God's presence in your life. Breathe. Go into the silence. Know that God surrounds you and is inside of your spiritual being. Feel all that love is in your heart. For the next few moments, listen in the silence and breathe. Just breathe. as we move into our present moment, rejoice in our creation. We are the creation. We are the light. We are the substance of all-powerful and all-knowing. Remember the frog, fully relying on God. Namaste. Would you please sing along with all of us the Lord's Prayer?
I am back. Thank you, Arbeth. I love that. Forever relying on God. When you can do that, no matter what is going on in your life, all is well. Isn't that correct? So wonderful. So, push and transition. I wonder what we're doing. You know, Carr used a lot of words that were metaphors of the birthing process. And last week we breathed, and this week we're going to push and transition. This is the last of the series of lessons based on that book, See No Stranger, a memoir and a manifesto of revolutionary love. And revolutionary love that she's talking about is not just an emotional love, although emotions can be included. It is a love in action. It is the kind of love that Jesus spoke about. Love God with all your heart, with all your mind, with all your soul, and love thy neighbor as thyself. And so she gave us like a framework and practices that we can use to be able to do that as we begin to love others, those that are strangers, and love our opponents, and most importantly, to learn to love ourselves, because can't love anyone unless we know how to love ourselves. So she says that to love the strangers, you want to wonder about them. You want to be able to have the opportunity to grieve with them and fight for justice with and for them. And then when you are trying to learn how to love your opponent, you need to start first with yourself. Because if we are wounded, we have no way of being able to engage with someone else. So it says to find those safe containers to express what it is that is within us. Sometimes it's a rage. And then when we are ready, when we are feeling like we have healed and moved through that, then to be able to have the courage to sit with our opponents as we are led and listen for understanding, so that as we listen for understanding with an open heart and an open mind to their stories, to their perspective, maybe we can find a way to begin to reimagine how we can co-create a way of being with one another that invites more equality and more fairness and more justice. And then finally, she says this revolutionary love is also needed to be applied to ourselves, to choose to love ourselves. And we do that by creating balance in our lives. One of the issues that I struggle with a lot. Create balance in our lives that will include self-care, but will also include connections with a community where you are known and where you are supported and where you are loved. And that will sustain us to do the labor that we know is ours to do. And always return to your breath. Breathe. Because that breath is the breath of life that reminds you that you can come back to yourself, come back to the present moment where we can see more clearly from the truth that we know, the truth of ourselves, and that power that lies within us that allows us to boldly go forth into whatever it is that Spirit is inspiring us to do. So this morning, we're at the final place of our birthing process, and we're going to be pushing, and we're going to be transitioning. And she calls this chapter, the 8th chapter, she calls it Push. And this is what she says. When I was finally ready to love myself, I had to learn how to breathe and push through my grief, through my rage and trauma. And on the other side, I found what seemed utterly impossible before, that healing and forgiveness and reconciliation is possible. Wow. When I read that statement, for me, the key word that popped out was ready. We need to be ready to do that. Get to that point where we are. And if we're not, then to continue to work on the work of ourselves that will prepare us to be ready to engage in that revolutionary love that knows how to love a stranger, love their opponents, and love themselves. Because none of it works unless we are ready to apply it to our lives. It reminds me of the 5 principles, you know. It says we have these amazing principles that are transformative. And it's okay to know them, but it's not enough. If you wanted to transform your life, you need to apply them. That's what Charles Fillmore says. It's not enough to know them. We have to live it. It becomes part of our living everyday experience. From where we are guided in the choices that we make and the actions that we take, in the way that we think. So after laboring for quite an extensive time, because Carr was passionate about this work that she was doing within her Sikh community all over the nation. But she was exhausted. And she had postponed so many important things in her life, and one of them was her honeymoon. She had gotten married, and during all of this experience, and they postponed it. So she decides that she and her husband's time, and now it's time, not to delay this anymore and go on their honeymoon. And she says that there were moments while she was enjoying nature, because she went backpacking, and in taking it all in, there were moments when she felt guilty. She felt guilty for taking off. And it said that she remembered her mother's words when that would happen. She said, allow yourself the pleasure you want for everyone on earth. For those of us that are workaholics, I say this to you. Take the time that you need to renew yourself. And allow yourself the pleasure you want for everyone else. Then we can be renewed and restored, and we can get right back into the labor that is ours. Carr says that while she was in that honeymoon with her husband, in the midst of all of the beauty of nature, she said, each place I visited expanded the aperture of what I could see, and therefore how much I could breathe in. You know, sometimes when you're in the work, you're barely breathing. You're not in the moment. You're just doing. And out there, she was able to breathe in fully. I was accessing the force of life within me that was quietly releasing me from the hold of memories of trauma and shame that has stitched into my skin since childhood. Wow, what a picture. And I was finding home in my body now, on this earth, in this timeline, as the sky circled around me humming, "You are stardust." The world was good enough, strong enough, beautiful enough, and worthy enough to be saved. And my body was part of the body of the world. And in order to love the world, I had to love myself. And now I knew it was time to push. Time to push. She knew there was something that wanted to birth in her. She was ready. And those of you that have been mommies know that when you get to that point where you're ready to push, it's pretty hard. Okay, it's pretty hard. But Car was ready to breathe and push through the grief that she was still holding on to. She was ready to push and grieve through her rage and her trauma. She was ready. And what she found on the other side was the healing. That healing that helps us to come back to our wholeness. What she found on the other side was forgiveness and reconciliation. And it was not easy. She had to breathe and push through all of this, taking time to rest from whenever she felt overwhelmed, and then going back again to breathing and pushing and going deeper and deeper and finding out where are those wounds inside of me that still need healing. A willingness to notice and embrace the emotions, the sensations that were moving through her body, including those that were painful and discomforting, to have an honest relationship with them, because they always come to tell us something, always. So healing, what I have concluded, as I heal, I realize it doesn't really end suffering completely. No, it doesn't. But it gives us the freedom to return back to our wholeness, return back to our true nature, and to know that we are one. The more we heal those parts of our lives that we have to grieve, the more we are able to see it from a different perspective, that we are whole and complete, a child of God, and so is everyone else. So Car, in this process of pushing and learning, she remembers going to visit her mother because her grandmother was dying. So she left her vacation to be by her grandmother's side. And when she walked in, she saw her mother tenderly caring for the grandmother right by the bedside, just there with her. She had been there for days. And that grandmother, she couldn't get it because that grandmother had been nothing but cruel to her mother. She never accepted her. She treated her like a second-class citizen. She was very cruel to her mother. And Car just couldn't understand. How can her mother offer her such tenderness and such love? And so when the grandmother dies, Car says to the mother, she says, how did you do it? How were you able to forgive her? And her mother said, it doesn't happen instantly. It takes time. With time. And then she said with watery eyes, forgiveness, my dear, is for you, not for the person who hurt you. It is for you, not for them. Wow, that gives me God bumps. And somewhere in her own healing journey, Carr's mother was able to see her mother-in-law in her fullness. Don't know when it happened, but somewhere she was able to do that. A woman who was a Panji farm woman, working the fields of California, who taught herself how to read and sign checks and sell peaches at a profit. She had 4 children, and she was able to bring all her siblings, all her family from India into America. So she was loved. He was loved by everyone. But she was cruel to Carr's mother, because the grandmother was treated cruelly by her own mother-in-law. It's all she knew. She did not have the wisdom. That grandmother did not have the wisdom to stop the cycle of oppression. She just didn't. And luckily, gratefully, Carr's mother did. So it wouldn't be repeated generation after generation. It's easy to love those who love you back, said Carr's mother. When somebody gives you pain, how do you love that person? That's the real test of love. And Carr took in those words that her mother so wisely offered her. And she realized that forgiveness is not forgetting. Forgiveness is the freedom from hating. It is not in our nature. That's not who we are. Our essence is of love. We come from love. That's who we are. And when we are able to forgive, we reconnect to that. And we feel our true essence. And we walk with that. Charles Fillmore said that it is through forgiveness that true spiritual healing is accomplished. It sets you free. Forgiveness removes the error, those thoughts in your mind and body. And it harmonizes everything so that you can walk in connoissance with divine law. How beautiful is that? To be able to be in that presence to do that. When we can find forgiveness, we can begin once again to wonder. Remember how she said about wondering about one another? Wonder about that person. And in wondering, perhaps you may find understanding why they did what they did. Maybe not, but at least you go back to wondering. And forgiveness, it's not a substitute for justice. Let me just say that. But it can reframe justice, not as a retribution. You know how we read in the Bible, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, which is what we're mostly familiar with. But as a transformation rather than a retribution. So after being with her mother, Carr decides that she has this feeling within her that she wants to be healed, that she has a new desire to let go of the animosity that she was still holding towards Roshan, her cousin that had molested her when she was younger. And she said, forgiveness at the end of her long internal healing process felt like a gift that she wanted to give to herself. It's a gift that you give to you. So perhaps, so she began to do this forgiveness work in her mind for Roshan. She said that she started doing it in her heart. But sometimes, she says, forgiveness can open up the previously unimaginable possibility of reconciliation. No. Reconciliation, that's hard. So what happened next was kind of interesting as I was reading it, because the universe is always working on our behalf, isn't it? The universe somehow brings to us exactly what we need and what we desire at the right and divine appointed time. And so out of the blue, Roshan calls Car to invite her to his wedding. Many years had passed, about 10 years. And by now he was an engineer and he had a fiance, and he was calling her to invite her to the wedding. But she believed that really what he was trying to do is reach out for reconciliation. And she told Roshan that she needed time to think about it. She wasn't sure if she wanted to do this with him, be at his wedding. She wasn't ready. At that point in her life, Car understood that survivors do not need to reconcile with their assailants to find the peace. They don't need to do that. So she had to think about it. But nevertheless, she began to imagine, though, while she was thinking, what would that look like? What would that look like, reconciliation between me and Roshan? And she remembers sharing with her husband the phone call and what was going on with her. And he says to her, is he aware of the impact of his actions in your life? And she says, probably not. And that was when she decided that she needs to ask Roshan if he was willing to go through this reconciliation process with her. And when she asked him, he said immediately, yes, anything. He was ready to heal as well. So the story that Car shares about that reconciliation with Roshan is pretty intense, very intense. And much too long for me to share with you today. But what I'll say is that with the guidance of her mentor, the way she started, she put together a series of questions. And each of those questions started with, do you acknowledge that? And this is important because reconciliation rests on accountability. It requires for the one who caused the harm to accept responsibility for their actions, and for the offender to find a way to repair it. Reconciliation can be a very powerful, life-giving alternative to retribution. Very powerful. So several times during the process, and I could imagine this, Roshan broke down into remorseful tears. He was very remorseful about what he had done. And she realized it wasn't her job to make him feel better. And that's hard for some of us, right? We see someone crying, we want to make it feel better for them, but she realized, no, it's not my job to do that. Because she understood that he had to be allowed to reckon with what he had done, and allowed to feel the intense emotional pain so that he can reconnect with empathy and compassion. Reconnect with that empathy and compassion in him. So reconciliation can mend some of what was torn apart. It can, but it will never return us to the point before that harm was done. It won't. And we want to be honest about that. So Roshan acknowledged that even after his apology, Car did not need to have a relationship with him. And Car recognized that too. But she pushed through and she went to the wedding. And she said that it was really hard being there. But she went because she felt that Roshan's apology through this process of reconciliation was really genuine. She found it difficult. But for the first time in a very long time, she was able to exhale. That powerful. First time, she felt free. So, what made Roshan's apology so genuine? Well, first of all, he was willing to wonder about himself and investigate the reasons for causing the harm that he did. He did that. And he was willing to wonder about Car and imagine how she felt and the suffering that she endured because of what he did. And he was willing to admit what he did, accepting responsibility for the consequences of his actions. And finally, he was willing to do the work of reparation. That's a genuine apology. And without these acknowledgments, there is no reconciliation, not really. So the labor of reconciliation is complicated, it's unpredictable and painful and hard. And Carr says that somehow, led by the deepest wisdom within us, Roshan and I pushed together to the other side and transitioned our family into a new place, broken and whole, wounded and healed, which I think is the best shape for a family to be in. Those words really spoke to me. You can be broken and yet be whole, wounded and yet be healed. So I ask you, can you imagine what this would look like if we did this as a nation? And this is the hard part of this talk. What would that look like? Because it's clear that we have no idea how to reconcile the dark parts of our history with the nation that we aspire to be. We just have no idea. And most times we want to forget it. Just forget it. Put it away somewhere. But if we keep covering it, it keeps creating the conditions for suppressed grief and rage and shame that keep erupting in these cycles of chaos and violence sometimes. What would it mean for us to love ourselves as a people? Not separated by religion or political parties or anything, sexual preference, nothing. Just as a people, a child of God. To breathe and push as a nation towards that reconciliation. What would that be like? And so Carr offers us a stark and honest answer. She says, take this into consideration. She says, America needs to reconcile with itself and do the work of apology. To say to the indigenous, the black and the brown people, we take full ownership for what we did. To say, we see how harm runs through generations. And to say, we own this, and we will not harm you again. That's pretty powerful. To promise the non-repetition of harm would require nothing less than transitioning the nation as a whole. It would mean retiring the old narrative that we are a city on a hill and embracing a new narrative that we are America longing to be reborn. A nation whose promise lies in the future. A nation we can only realize by the labor that we do for one another. Reckoning with the past, reconciling with ourselves, and restructuring in a way that will lead us to more fairness and equality. That's how we transition. And she said, what would this require of us? And so I was wondering, what would that require of us? And she concludes with this really powerful image. She says, transition feels like dying. but it is the stage that precedes the birth of a new life. In all of our various creative labors, making a living, raising a family, building a nation, there are moments that are so painful we want to give up. But inside the searing pain and encouraging numbness, we might also find the depth of our courage, hear our deepest wisdom, and transition to the other side. When I read that, I thought about what is the barrier that keeps us from doing that? And for me, what came up was that little inner voice that tells us, I can't, we can't. That's the barrier that I thought came up. But we discover as we walk in this journey that unity principles are amazing. That we don't have to give that inner critic the driver's seat in our mind. That we have the power to change our thinking, to create a new reality based on a new way of thinking that is based on spiritual truth. You don't need that voice to be on the driver's seat. And when we allow the new voice, the voice of the higher self, the Christ within us, a hope of glory, that voice will tenderly reveal to us truth and wisdom, and we will be filled with compassion and fearlessness. Nothing is against us. And guidance. For this is a moment in the history that we have come for. I'm really passionate about this. It is the voice, that higher voice within us that returns us back to ourselves. It reminds us of the truth. Carr says that joy, when we're that oneness with that inner voice, when we're walking and listening and participating and applying the truth, joy returns to us. Everything that is good and beautiful and worth fighting for. In joy, we see even darkness through new eyes. I am not alone. I am one in a million. I was part of a movement, one in a constellation. I had to shine my light in my specific slice of the sky, and I knew I could do that. So joy is the gift of love. It is the strength that gets us to persevere and keep moving. The joy of the Lord is our strength. And we may let joy in our hearts for ourselves and invite others to experience it as well. If we do this right, Carr says, if we do this right, future generations will inherit not our fear, but our bravery born out of joy. That's powerful. So, my friends, you can tell I am very passionate about this. And I don't know where this will take us. I don't know why that book came into my hands. But I will always use my platform to speak the truth. The truth that we know that Spirit has revealed to us, that we are one. I do hope that this journey of seeing no strangers has been as meaningful for you as it has been for me. I am holding a vision for us of a beloved community that invites others to come and listen to these life-transforming teachings that empower us to move forward and labor for one another. I look forward to, I was thinking when I was writing this, I started to cry. I look forward to the time when we can be together and cry together and laugh together. And yes, hug each other. Oh my. I know that whatever awaits us, whatever is calling Unity or Citrus to become, whatever that will be, I know that there's so much love among us that we can do it together. We can do it supporting one another as we walk the truth into transformation. I love you and bless you. Thank you. Namaste.
If there's anyone from the past or present that I need to forgive, now I do so. Simply let go. I bless them, I love them, I forgive them, and I release them into your care. If there's anyone from the past or present that needs to forgive me, please do so. Simply let go and bless me, love me, forgive me, and release me into his care. I bless them, I love them, I forgive them, and I release them into your care. I bless them, I love them, I forgive them, and I release them. Release them. Release them into your care.
It's that time at our service now to give of our gifts, our tithes, and our offerings. We are so grateful to all of you who can be here with us and out there. Your tithes and gifts are so greatly needed to support our Unity community. Your gifts make it possible to support our ministry outreach. Please take your gifts in your hands and affirm your offerings, blessing with me. Divine love, through me, blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. I send forth this gift with my blessings and my love. We know it is given in love and received in love, and that's what moves through the ministry with energy of divine love out into the world as good. And so it is. Thank you, God. Amen. If you'd read with me the prayer of protection. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. Thank you so much for being here today. Luce has a few closing words. Namaste.
Namaste. Well, mine is really, really brief. I just want to give you a couple of updates on some of our beloved congregants whom you've been sending cards for and having your prayers. I went to see Lee yesterday. He's doing wonderful. He looks really well. And if he's watching, hi, Lee. He says he tries to watch. And Pat Maynard had shoulder surgery. And I spoke to her yesterday, and she said she's doing really, really well. Thank you. So thank you for holding us, all of us, in your prayers, keeping us in the spirit of oneness. So we are experiencing, different things, but we know that we have each other. We got each other. So thank you for coming today. I bless and love you, and I will see you outside.
If there's anyone from the past or present that I need to forgive,